President Biden set to address the nation this evening with the economy front and center on his agenda. Joining us now, Lael Brainard. She's the director of the White House National Economic Council. Always good to see you, Lael. And we're looking over some of the provisions, and we know this is a wish list. Is that the right term to use? Because a lot of these things are just things that the administration has as a priority, but not necessarily any chance of becoming law anytime soon with a divided Congress and the like. But what I'll say is there is a distinct anti-business or at least populist tone to a lot of these provisions. Why does the president and the administration think that's the right way to go at this point?
Well, the president's going to lay out his vision for building our economy from the bottom up and the middle out. He's going to want to talk about all of the things that he's done that have gotten us in a strong position today, remind everybody just how difficult the economy was when he took office, and lay out the work that lies ahead to have an economy that works for everyone, a tax system that is fairer, and a variety of ways to make life more affordable for middle-class Americans.
I know that I know a lot of thinking goes into how to approach things, and I'm not saying he's really the president's doubling down on some of the things we've heard in previous years, but in light of some of the recent polls that we've seen indicating the country's approval or disapproval with the president's economic policies. I know you saw it in the New York Times. It's gotten, uncharacteristically, it's gotten some flack from the left, but 40% of voters said that Mr. Trump's policies had helped them personally, economic. Only 18% said the same about Mr. Biden's policies, while 43% said Mr. Biden's policies had hurt them. Now, if you were to ask a Biden supporter what were Trump's policies, it would have been cutting corporate taxes. So 40% think that Trump's policies helped, and you're just back to the same old playbook of trying to raise taxes on corporations, going after CEO pay, private jets. It just seems like class warfare, and I'm not sure that's what Americans really want to hear.
So we do actually know a lot about what Americans support. Americans strongly support having a tax system that's fair. A large majority of Americans support making sure that billionaires pay the same rate of taxes as a school teacher or firefighter. The large majority of Americans just don't think it's fair that people who make hundreds of millions of dollars pay 8% in their taxes compared to 25% for a school teacher or a firefighter. And if you look at sentiment, actually just to reference a CEO survey from the Business Roundtable yesterday, jumping over the last quarter above historical averages. Lots of excitement about capital expenditure, and consumer sentiment, of course, has jumped 25% over the last 3 months. So we're really seeing the turnaround in the economy. And don't forget just how dire things were when the president first took office. We've seen 15 million jobs, inflation coming down by 2/3, unemployment below 4%. So a lot of people are seeing the benefits of those policies and want to see a tax system that's fair.
It's always possible to pick and choose some things from Business Roundtable. And we talked about that disconnect a little earlier. While being optimistic about business conditions, there was concern about regulation from the Biden administration and not just regulation, but the government being too involved with the private sector and actually hindering things. So that was part of the survey as well, Lael.
Yeah, so it is the case, very much the case, that a lot of Americans talk about, for instance, healthcare costs as being one of their primary concerns. And with drug prices in this country 2 to 3 times higher than other countries, it's necessary for the president to put forward some of these proposals. And of course, he's had major legislative victories, now able to cap out-of-pocket drug costs for seniors at $2,000 starting next year. Insulin prices at $35 rather than $400 per month. Those really put money back in the pockets of American working families. I think it's good for business. It is certainly good for the middle class.
Lael, if I'm trying to figure out how the 25% would work on the real high net worth, high income earners, what if they don't pay themselves income? How do you? What's the mechanism of getting at it? Because we talk about that over and over again. You know, you can take a loan against stock and never really report any substantial or significant income. Therefore, your overall tax rate looks much lower and is much lower. But how do you get at it? What's the mechanism that you think would work on this?
You're certainly right that there's all kinds of ways currently the billionaires avoid paying their fair share of taxes. And so it's just a simple proposal that would have billionaires pay 25% of their income, including unrealized capital gains, and it would phase in over a period of time. There would be no double counting. It would be like prepaying those taxes, since they need to be paid ultimately anyway. And it would phase in, and nobody who's already paying 25% would pay a penny more for those billionaires that are already paying 25%, if there are some. So it's very well crafted. It won't create any additional burden. It's simply getting billionaires to pay their fair share, similar to school teachers and firefighters. And again, just strongly supported by the American people.
I just wondered whether it did include the unrealized gain nightmare. You know, just trying to implement it and trying to get it through and everything else. I don't know whether that's feasible, but I wondered if it has to be. I don't see any other way to approach it if you don't put that on the table. But then you start getting into the very difficult enforcement, and just getting it into law would be difficult. But I understand that these are things that are the president's priority, and look forward to hearing it tonight, and appreciate you being on today. We always like that shot.
Yeah, just to say again, it's really the American people's priority. They really do want to see a fairer tax system, and the president wants to support that. So thank you.